Welcome back, everybody, to our third session, Digital Twins for Cities, hosted by Chalmers University and the Digital Twin Cities Center. My name is Ben Ketzler. I'm the scientific coordinator of the Digital Twin Cities Center, and we had a couple of really successful first seminars already. Today is the third one on legal and organizational challenges, and we're really excited for this session as well. As always, we encourage you to ask questions in the YouTube chat. We try to pull in as much as we can and have our speakers comment on those questions. And with that, I actually want to invite Christina Claesen-Jonsson onto the stage because she's going to be our moderator for this session. Hey, Christina, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to have you with us. Christina, you're head of research and innovation at NCC, but you're also a board member of the Digital Twin Cities Center. And we're really happy to have you here as our moderator for this session. I don't want to talk too much now. I just want to give you the stage, and I will enjoy this session. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm looking forward to very interesting presentations. So I won't take up all the time. I will go right into the first presentation. And first out is Sarah Rock. Sarah is Principal Associate at Gowling WLG. She's a construction lawyer from London who specializes in digital construction. Sarah sits on the Digital Framework Task Group, which is a Centre for Digital Build Britain initiative set up to help deliver the National Digital Twin Programme to the UK. So, Sarah, we are really happy to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christina. Thank you for having me. I wish I could be in Sweden right now, but I'm in London. I'm just going to try and share my screen with you so you can see my PowerPoint slides. Are they coming up, Christina? There we go. Okay, hopefully you can see that, Christina.
It's still loading. Yeah, there it is.
Perfect, thank you. So last year, the Centre for Digital Build Britain, one of the requirements for the Digital Framework Task Group was to look at legal issues around digital twins. So we set up a legal roundtable with some experts from various different elements of law. So I sat as chair and spoke about construction. We had Ian on financial regulation, Diana spoke about energy, Tamara about IP and data, Claire about planning, Fleur spoke from the government and the public good angle, Alan spoke about insurance, Serena spoke about IP and tech, and Naveen around funding and finance. And the reports came up with some executive summaries, which we think will be helpful for other digital twin projects going on. So in the UK, the digital twin project is being government-led. So we were discussing how it should be approached in regards to governance. And we thought that this should be a top-down approach. So then there's a kind of a bit of a gap in governance, we felt, which could be filled with legislation or a mandatory approach. But it needs to be at government level, as we saw that there's a need to avoid the competitive advantage in the private sector or they're being perceived as such. As lawyers, we're actually quite thrilled to be engaged so early. It's not often that lawyers are involved at the start. Often law is too reactive rather than proactive. And it was great to see CDBB thinking innovatively and getting these sort of soft skills in early to maybe try and prevent things going wrong later and then legal disputes later. So if we get the lawyers talking now, we thought that was a great idea. And the lawyers also thought that insurance, finance and regulators should be involved at this early stage. We then looked at stakeholder interactions. So we felt that existing contracts and methods of procurement, particularly in the UK, are not quite ready for this. I'll talk about that in more detail a little bit later. But not only within the UK, we felt there were international aspects which need to be addressed. The interoperability of data between the different digital twins is kind of one of the points of the digital twins. So that really was an issue that we looked at. And then finally, we looked at IPR data and access. So where the IP in the twin sits, and that kind of links back to point one, the governance. We thought a government-led approach was crucial, with levels of access to the data to be top-down. So we looked at some conclusions, next steps, recommendations for the National Digital Twin Programme here in the UK. We really felt there was needed to be more understanding of digital twins in the legal world. I previously co-authored with May Winfield the Winfield Rock Report, which looked at the legal understanding of BIM. And there was a huge perception of a lack of legal knowledge around this technology, around BIM, around digital tech, around prop tech. And some of the conclusions from that report felt that lawyers needed to be more proactive and innovative. Otherwise, there could be disputes later. If lawyers are sort of drafting contracts for digital twins or around BIM, the technical knowledge kind of needs to be there a little bit in the background. We then also looked at the cause for a digital twin. So why have a digital twin? And we were asking questions back to Cambridge about what can, should, will the twin be used for. And we felt that sort of forward thinking needed to be there. And anybody creating a digital twin ought to really be careful of running before walking. I think lawyers are quite risk averse, so we were suggesting that perhaps not to dash on, just stop and think every step along the way. And then we looked at contracts in various different forms. And from my side of things, little really has changed in the UK around BIM. The standard form contracts, JCT, NEC, have allowed for inclusion of a BIM protocol, but don't really go much further than that. It's a very light touch. And whether there is a need for a protocol at all, or whether there ought to be more drafting in those standard forms to cover off BIM, and going forwards digital twins, we thought that was something that really needed to be addressed. Then we looked at something that's ongoing in the UK at the moment called the National Underground Asset Register, which is a live project run by Holger Kessler out of the UK government. And Holger's looking at everything up to a metre under the ground to create a digital twin to prevent utility strikes and to help implement 5G in the UK, which is required for digital twins, really. And we were considering the liability and warranty of existing data. So where the pipes are now and who's responsible for knowing where they are, and whether there ought to be some sort of data amnesty to allow people to feel free to sort of give their drawings and their data to NUAR. But whether the site owner has responsibility for the data it hosts, and who's responsible for keeping that data up to date and moving it forwards. Again, that sort of public good angle came in, mandating the use of data, whether it could have ramifications for competition going forwards. So I think because we are so government-led in the UK, that there's always that public-private sector sort of angle on this. We then looked at blockchain and whether that could help with some of the IP rights. But we felt, again, there might be a lack of understanding around blockchain for lawyers. I think the general theme across this was lawyers need to be a bit more tech savvy. But we were wondering whether the complexity of a digital twin could be seen as off-putting for some. And we found that, May and I found that with the Winfield Rock Report, that people were a little bit scared to put their hands up and say that they don't understand this. So I think programs like these seminars are really helpful to break down the complexity, because it can be quite scary and off-putting. So the more simplified the message, the better. And we quite like to simplify the message on benefits and risk. And then with risk comes accountability. So the digital twin needs accountability. And how is this to be achieved? We wondered whether regulators could be part of the solution, which sort of links back to the governance and legislation mandation issues. So we felt some next steps going forwards for the UK's National Digital Twin Programme would be to run another series of legal roundtables, this time where the lawyers actually have to answer some of the questions rather than ask them of Cambridge, and look at some early sort of legal drafting that's going on in the UK at the moment. We felt the unification of the legal body of knowledge for digital twins. There's not much case history around this. So as I said, I think lawyers need to be more proactive in this area. And we're trying to look at creating a legal working party within the National Digital Twin Programme here in the UK. I think the main message that came out of the programme was none of these legal issues are insurmountable. Lawyers are quite clever generally and can work their way around things. But the earlier the lawyers are engaged and the more understanding that they have of digital twins, I think the better the results will be coming out of that. So if I just come out of my slides. There we go. So I'm back in the room. I think really the message is the earlier the lawyers can get involved, the more the lawyers can understand. We think it'd be that's the best way forward. Be proactive, be innovative, get involved. Don't be scared to put your hand up and ask a question if you don't understand something around BIM or digital twins. Get that technical knowledge, and it'll help with the drafting.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Super interesting. I do think we have time for a short question. We have a question from Clem. It says, hi, Sarah. How can you implement legal requirements around live documents, BIM execution plan, for example?
Yeah, this came up in the Winfield Rock report as something that we felt could be dealt with through drafting. So a lot of documents are moving around, a lot of technical documents move around during a construction project, and the BIM execution plan, trying not to use acronyms as much as possible. The BIM execution plan is a moving document, but with some drafting to say that you adhere to the BIM execution plan as it changes from time to time. It's simple drafting along those lines could be dealt with. I think originally in the UK there was a need for a BIM protocol, and I think it was really to highlight the legal issues around BIM. But I think if you take the BIM protocol legal drafting and put it into your contract, you then don't have a separate contract, which could interfere, and you could have different IP clauses, you could have different interactions there, which could cause problems. So I think the more you simplify this down, the more the BIM wording, the digital twin wording gets included in the original drafting, the better.
Yeah, right. We're going to leave you for a while, and then we're going to go back to some more questions after this third presentation. So thank you, Sarah, and bye for a while.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for having me.
So that was a very interesting presentation from Sarah, and now we are up to another presenter, Roland van der Heijden. He's a program manager of Digital City Rotterdam. And since 2018, Roland has been working full-time on the development of the Digital City of Rotterdam. Until 2022, he and his team will continue to research, develop, and build up the urban platform Digital City. So welcome on the stage, Roland, and yeah, go ahead and go.
Thank you, Christina. I will share my screen. So, do you see my screen?
We do.
Christina, can you confirm that you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it, but you don't have it in presentation mode yet?
Yes, now it's in presentation mode.
Not yet. Can you try again? Doesn't matter how many times you prepare and try. And when you're live, it's always something that comes up.
It's now okay, or don't you see it? Still
It's loading. We see it not in presentation mode. We see it in the normal where you have the small pictures on the side.
Okay, that's strange because for me it's in presentation mode.
Yeah, Ben says here that you should share your entire screen. I don't know if you've done that.
Okay, we'll try once again. Sorry for this. We've practiced it before, but then it still goes wrong.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what happens. Sometimes you do the same thing and it suddenly works, or it doesn't work. But we'll try one more time, and if it doesn't work, we'll just make sure that you enlarge the screen as much as possible, and I'm sure that will work also.
Do you see my presentation now? Does this work?
No, now we saw the sort of actual presentation, the StreamYard, only the background. So you go back and do the same as you did before, and
And now?
yes, perfect.
Okay, so happy it worked. Sorry for this. My name is Roland van der Heijden. I'm the program manager, as Christine already mentioned, from the Digital City Program of Rotterdam. And I want to take you along in high speed by several choices that we think that you should make when you are thinking about developing an urban platform with a 3D digital twin. But before I do that, yes, I want to take you along about what we think what a digital twin is. And in our opinion, a digital twin starts with a smart 3D model of the city. And in Rotterdam, we have a smart model, not like Google Earth, where you see a beautiful picture of a building, but it's a picture and it's not an object. And in Rotterdam, we have a 3D city model in which everything is an object. Every building, every tree, every bench, every pipe and cable in the underground, everything is an object. And that allows us to have a smart basis on the geographical description of the city. Now, and when you combine that 3D description of the city with real-time data that says something about how the city is functioning. So in this picture, you see garbage cans. So we have a 3D model in which we have garbage cans, and we put data to that, which says if that garbage can is full or not. And we have a light pole that's and we have data if it's burning or not. And we have a street, and we have data on how many cars they are driving through. When you bring those two aspects together, then you get what we think is a digital twin of the city. And so the digital twin describes the current physical state of the city, how it's functioning in terms of data. And when you store that real-time picture of the city, then you get also very beautiful historical patterns about how the city is functioning. And that this is what we call a digital twin, and that is the basis, for, of course, for all kinds of smart applications that you can build on top of that digital twin. Now, before we get there, we think that you should make a number of choices, and we have put here the 6 choices here where we think that are important. And one of them is about the perspective that you choose, the way of developing your platform, the design principles you choose by doing that, the way of cooperating, and the governance structure. And in the end, of course, also the legal aspects of how can you organize that in relation to the market. Do we need to procure or see other possibilities for development? And by making the choices, in our opinion, 4 principles are important. And those principles are what we say, trust, because we see that, and also several literature studies subscribe that the trust of the participants in the ecosystem in each other and in the offered infrastructure of that ecosystem is very important. If there's no trust, there won't be a successful ecosystem or a successful urban marketplace, urban platform. Interoperability is key in that. The essence is that we need that we make it possible that data can flow. So interoperability of data, that it can flow between everybody in the ecosystem, is essential. And the software should adapt to that. And a third thing is that we need to stay flexible, because we can build systems today, but tomorrow we still need to be able to use those systems or to act on the things that are coming along then. And as fourth, of course, we are a government, and we think it's very important that what we do is transparent. So transparency is very essential in the whole process. And on the right corner, there should be a video, but it's not working also, so that's very pity. When you look at the perspective, then we think that it's essential that you not only look from the inside out, as a municipality looking outside and say, okay, we have data, we need to make them open. Of course, that's also one aspect, but at least of the same importance is the other way around. Looking from the ecosystem, the city ecosystem towards the municipality, and say, okay, what kind of things do we need in this ecosystem to get it that it's going to thrive and to be alive, and that it will work and connect everybody in it, and what kind of how should that platform then be developed, looking from that point of view, and what kind of role do we have as a government in that development? Do we leave it to the market, or do we have a role for ourselves, or do we be the traditional contractor? We can all choose all kind of positions in that. The second thing is how you develop this kind of products. So the perspective is one. The second is the way of development. And we see in that, of course, a bit like what's very popular at the time, agile working and things like that. So for us, developing a platform, but also applications that we build on top of that platform, follow a process of, if it's going to be developed to the end, that has 4 stages. And the first stage is the proof of concept, in which learning about technical possibilities, etc., is the main aspect. And when we think, okay, that's very useful what we've learned here in this proof of concept, and we want to go further with that, then we're going to build a prototype. And that prototype is still much about learning, but also has the first contours of what's going to be a product, possibly. And when we're still going to go further, then we go to minimal viable product phase, in which we say, okay, in this phase, the product becomes the most important thing, and what does it need, how can we implement it, etc., etc. And when that's successful, then we are really going to implement it in operational situations, and it needs to be maintained, so that needs to be taken care of, etc., etc. And after that, you can scale. Putting that way of working on the timeline, on our roadmap of the urban development of the platform, the development of the urban platform, then we see that we've already developed a proof of concept and a prototype of the platform. And now we're in the phase that we're thinking about, okay, we've done a market consultation to ask the market what they think about the development and what we want. But do we need to go for the next step, the minimal viable product? Do we need to go into procurement, or how do we going to really develop this MVP? So that's the phase where we at this moment are. And after the MVP phase, of course, there will be final go, no-go moment, and then we're going operational. And then the digital twin is, in our opinion, launched, but there the vision doesn't stop. So after the digital twin, in which we connect the digital and the physical world, we see a development towards what we call a digital urban community, in which not only the digital and physical world are connected, but also the social world. So then we want to connect those three realities. Now, how do we do this? What are our design principles? Now, to be very short, we come from a world in what we call the grand design, the very beautiful but very complex design schemes, architectural schemes about some kind of ICT solution for a certain problem. But those things are very complex, give a lot of discussion, take a lot of time. And if they get really be implemented, then they're most of the time already 3 years lagging behind the latest developments. So you need to be much more flexible and thinking much more in building blocks. Now, and in that we use the MIM principles as our functional building blocks that we see as what we really need as a minimal functionality put together, what will become what we call our platform. Now, and we, of course, look in that sense to the open agile smart city community, where MIMs are developed on a European scale. In Rotterdam, we're already working with the MIMs since the European project Espresso. And for us, we already saw that these are the 9 MIMs that we think that you need to develop to build that platform with digital twin in its minimal form and also in a flexible form.
Roland, I think we need to wrap up here a little bit.
Okay, I will go very fast through this. This is also very logical. We really believe that you should work together in co-creation with all kind of parties within and also without your ecosystem. And the traditional contractee position is not longer working for this kind of developments, we think. And also put there, you need to think about the roles that you need to play as a government within the ecosystem. So we thought about the roles we see in the ecosystem and the roles we as a government think we should play in that. Based on the procurement, we thought long about the procurement, but in this moment we're now thinking about maybe we shouldn't do a procurement for the product as a whole, the platform as a whole, all those MIMs put together. And see it as a product, but maybe we should develop it much more really as the MIMs already are, separate building blocks that we put together based on the PPI's constructions, combined with a system integrator that makes sure that all those building blocks are working together. Great. Here I would want to end.
Okay. Thank you very much, Roland. Super interesting and very impressive. I have a lot of questions, but I think we'll leave that for the discussion for now. And we'll say welcome to our final presenter, John Tsar. John is Head of Digital Construction at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication in Estonia. And John has managed processes and IT in the construction industry for over 15 years. He joined the Estonian Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication in 2018 with the goal to digitally transform construction in Estonia. He's currently working on developing the e-construction platform, which will provide the backbone for data sharing throughout the building life cycle and the national digital twin. He is Deputy Chair of the EU BIM Task Group and a member of the Building Smart Board of Directors. Very impressive, John, and we are indeed looking forward to listening to your presentation.
Thank you, Christina, for the great introduction. It was really long. I should try to shorten my my bio. Hopefully, you can also see my screen. I'm just going to skip quickly through a few slides. I know we're short on time. I am indeed from Estonia, and as you may already know, Estonia is considered one of the most digital societies in the world. We have all of our state services online. We, use digital signatures. We vote online. So where else would be a better place to implement a digital twin than Estonia, right? Because we already have, when it comes to the construction industry, a fully digital building permit process. We have a building registry, which is, a newer term maybe for that is spreading a digital building logbook. So we've had the digital process in 2016 already. It is working. It is working really well. It saves a ton of time, but it's still, kind of a bit old-fashioned in the sense that we exchange PDFs and drawings, not BIM models. But that's changing as well, because we're transitioning to maybe an umbrella term is an e-construction platform. So I really like Roland's presentation. He was also mentioning an urban platform. And I think this platform way of thinking is definitely the key to building the next generation of really cool products and innovations. And it's all about connecting the different pieces of data with each other to form a holistic view of the built environment. And that's also where the digital twin comes into play. So data is, of course, at the core of everything. Digital twins are kind of a syncing between the real and the digital. But a key role is also the visualization, because we are visual creatures. And instead of showing you more slides, I will try and jump into a live demo of the digital twin we are developing in Estonia. So maybe just quickly one more slide before that. We started in 2018, very similar to how Roland described, from proof of concept. And now we're in phase 2, where we're actually developing the service, and we're about to launch live at the end of this month, actually, so next week. And what this means is that, but we're not talking about one city, we are talking about a whole country. So I have here the live version of the digital twin. So if I zoom out to Estonia and zoom into any specific part, I will see that the data is there. We have the 3D topography, we have 3D buildings. There's different underlying map layers you can use. You can use aerial photographs, etc. So there's quite a bit of strain on the network connection on my end, so it takes a bit of time to load. But what you might notice here, we have a lot of different layers, a lot of different information. I will go through a few of them very quickly and explain them to you. We have buildings in 2 levels of detail. What you're seeing here is the level of detail we have from the building registry. So this is actually the first time you can really visualize data within an official registry. I can click on any building, and it will bring up information about cadastre, about the building itself. If I click on the building code, it will open up the building registry and show me all the information we have in the building registry, which is the standard way it has been viewed and has been available for years. But now you have a 3D view into it, and what you can see is what's going on. The buildings are flat, right? So that shows that we have errors in our data. Not all of these buildings have height information in the registry, because the registry was, going back longer history of Estonia. We have our national, we became re-independent in the early 90s. So that's when we started actually creating new registries, everything from scratch. And a lot of the information about older buildings specifically is not complete. And you can also see, the different colors represent the green ones are buildings that have building permits, have not yet been constructed. The brown ones, for example, like these ones, they are under construction or renovation, so they haven't yet been approved. So, well, in terms of approval, it means they haven't been yet been approved as finished buildings. So building permits, there's, of course, okay, I have an incoming call from somewhere, which is strange. Let me try and get that out of the way here. Okay, sorry about that. Now, going through some of the layers as well, we have, we can view, as I said, cadastre. There's a way to view all kinds of limitations. For example, the utility networks, which are currently actually in 2D, but we are building a 3D
Well, thank you very much, Johannes. It was amazing. I would say we are struggling just doing a BIM model of a building or a bridge, and you have done not only a city but also a whole country. So much to be inspired of. I think that we'll try to invite the others on screen here. There's Sarah and there's Roland. I want to move on to the part where we'll discuss a little bit what you've currently presented. I think that you have touched on similar sort of topics, but from different perspectives, and added a lot of insights for myself and hopefully for the audience as well. But I would like to start with a question to you, Jan. Because as you've said, and we've heard, Estonia is really famous for breaking departmental silos and integrated data in an efficient way using technology here. And do you see technology as a key enabler to overcome these organizational challenges?
Absolutely. I mean, our approach is well. There's really different two ways you can go at it. So one way is you really start doing all the legal work, the due diligence, the background. You kind of try to pre-approve everything that you want to do. But this doesn't work if you're really trying to do something innovative, something agile. So what we've applied is that we're kind of going technology first a little bit, use case first, and then we're testing it out, seeing how it works in the wild, in the environment. And if there is a very strong use case behind it, if people accept it, the market, the companies see a benefit from this, and if there's any legal issues, we then handle those legal issues afterwards. So we try not to get bogged up in legal discussions before it is actually a thing. So that's why we maybe are moving a bit faster, or we have this capability to move faster. But this doesn't undermine, of course, that you have to be sure that you're in safe legal water, so to speak, and you're not breaking any rules. So there's always a disclaimer with our stuff that is kind of in development, that is the first release, that is the MVP, etc., etc. But we really want to get the things out there and give the people the opportunity to really try and test things before we start writing a law about it.
And I think that sort of really wants me to hear Sarah's approach here, because Sarah, you talked also about involving legal or lawyers as soon as possible in the process. What do you think about Jan's approach here?
It couldn't be more different, could it? It's quite interesting. I think from a legal perspective, I think it's bold. I think it's brave. But you can see the results that you've come up with. Have you come across any legal issues so far, Jan? Or are you? I mean, I personally feel sometimes people feel like lawyers try and hold things back and hold technology back and hold innovation back, and that's why I'm sort of trying to plead out for people for lawyers to be more innovative and to understand where you're coming from, Jan, in the sense that law should not hold things back; it should assist.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and we don't know yet. We're going live on the 30th of March, so that's where we're going to get the feedback and stuff. So obviously, there's going to be some bumps on the road, but we have our own legal department in the ministry as well. We try to run everything by them, so we do actually try and be as careful as possible, but we try to balance it. So I definitely agree, Sarah, that you have to take care of the legal aspects, and when something goes to court, it can all blow up. But yeah, sometimes you just have to be bold and try things. So this is my first job in public office as well. So maybe I'm not yet schooled enough, but at least we're trying new things, we're trying new innovations, and if we stumble, we try and get up again.
I think it's a good approach, Jan. It's in the sense of you've been able to do it. I think my concern is it's only the lawyers that ever win if things go wrong. So I wish you the best of luck when it goes live.
Yeah, and touching upon that, and Roland, you in your presentation you touched about trust and transparency, and that's really connecting the legal aspects and also the innovation and sort of pushing the limit with technology. Can you give us some reflections on that?
Also, in reflection on the previous discussion, we have also in my team, I have a legal advisor, I have the chief privacy officer, and other people thinking along. But that's, in my opinion, two things. One thing is the law, and other things is how do we things is that fit in the jurisdiction of laws and does it work or not? That, in my opinion, are two different things. And where you see that the most, that's, for my opinion, also a very interesting discussion, is the discussion around GDPR. GDPR is a law, but it's a law that's already several years old. It's based on a situation even much older. It's very good instrument. It's good that we have a GDPR, but at the same time, it's not helping us really dealing with privacy issues. Or maybe it's not dealing with, because there's also a lot of gray area around the GDPR that we not really know what the GDPR allows or not. And that also has to do that we as a government are used to avoiding risks. So everybody's working on the safe side regarding the GDPR. So that's a different aspect. But when you look at privacy, in this sense, we have a case study in which we want to search for the possibilities of measuring real-time presence of people regarding safety in buildings. Now, and the techniques allow you to do that by the accuracy of a square meter. So when we do that in an office, your boss would be able to see where you are and how long you're sitting on the toilet again for more than 20 minutes. So that's and that you don't want that. So that's really privacy sensitive data. At the same time, and that's what I find the very interesting issue in this. At the same time, when there's going to be a disaster in that building and the firemen are running downstairs into the building, then that person that is sitting on the toilet, I believe that he wants to shout off the roof where he is. So at that point, then it's very important that that data is open. So that turning point, that is what, in my opinion, is privacy about. Not about the GDPR, but about this. And we need to create the situations in the end that we really take care of privacy in a sense that we as a society feel good about it. So when you're creating trust and maintaining privacy in creating trust is more about dealing also with the feelings and things like that around privacy than solely by the GDPR. And to do this, we really need to experiment, learn, find out ways of dealing with it. And also sometimes maybe be a bit more daring to go into that gray area around some laws and find out what really is possible.
It's really about collaborating and co-creation, really. We do have a question from the audience, from Odd. And it's really from Jan. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, you don't have any legal issues showing the utilities underground?
That's a very good question. What we're showing at the moment is the safety zone related to, for example, the gas pipe or an electrical line. So we're not actually displaying the physical object itself, although we are building that database and we are going to show it as well. There's two aspects here. One is that there's a lot of interested parties to know that information. And if you think about why we should hide it, well, of course, there are people who are very concerned about it, also in Estonia. But in my view, the concerns or the risks related to showing, open the utility networks far outweigh the benefits far outweigh the risks, to be blunt, because if there's somebody who wants to whatever terrorist attack or whatever, they will find a way anyway to do that. And the second point is that if we have this data, but we already have an underlying system for the electronic identity, EID, so you have to log in to the system to see granular data, more detailed data. And that is where we can start, based on your role, whether or not you should have access to this or that type of data. And even if you have access to the data, we are logging your access to that data. So in the wild, anybody can go out and see where a fire hydrant is. They can make, pretty much deduct where the water pipes are or whatever. But when they go online, they see it, but we can register who, when, viewed what, if the case needs be. And that's not, saying that, it's the big brother that's watching everything. It's the person has their right to their own data. And those who are accessing the identity system in Estonia is working so that public authorities, they don't, and organizations, even if they provide some access to somebody, they don't see what that person has access before or etc. That is still with that person, but you will have control over the data as well, about who has access to your data, who has made requests, etc. So it's a very, I would say, a very good system to make sure that we are keeping in line with data protection, and we're also providing access to data where it needs to be.
Sarah and Roland, is there anything you'd like to pitch in on that, or are you agreeing or have similar thoughts?
I'm agreeing. I think that's a topic that came up in the legal reports, which I should have mentioned. The legal report is available on the CDBB DT Hub, so it's accessible in more detail. I just chose a few slides from it today, but the level of access to data and who needs to see what and why. I think that's quite important, and I think it goes back to Roland's point about the firefighters. The firefighters need access to certain levels of data, which other people don't. So I think that's one thing we're trying to work out here in the UK, about who sees what and when and why.
Yeah, I think that's unavoidable, that you really need to have a good, what we call identity and access management, so that you really can based on what the data source is allowing to you, who has access to what and what time, under what circumstances, etc. So in the end, that's also a bit my point about what the firefighters. It's not necessarily you need access to yes or no. Nay, access is much determined under the conditions, on which moment, for what, etc. So there's a lot attached to it, and you really should take that into account. And build an identity and access management system around that to take care of that. Great.
We have another question from Clem. See that? This is to you, Roland, in particular. Is there an understanding how and when the system will achieve its return of investment? Have you assessed stakeholders who may possibly buy or use this information?
Yes, regarding the first question, we have also done a market consultation which confirmed what we already found out in earlier interviews and trajectories, that the return on investment on an urban platform is expected to be around 7 up until 10 years. That's also the main reason that for a lot of smaller companies, smaller enterprises, it's very difficult to invest and to develop this kind of platforms. Not, of course, for the big tech companies, but that has other discussions if that's something that we should want to. So, but for the smaller companies, that's main issue, and that's also why we in Rotterdam now choose a bit like Matsukato, the American professor about the risk investors. Her story about that we as government say, okay, then we want to have some kind of risk investment for the first 3 years, to make that period of the return on investment for companies much more overseeable and less risky. And from there, they need to take over and need to get the platform into a positive business case itself. And in the market consultation confirms that there are several companies really believe that this business case model could work. And for us, the important question in that is, okay, we want to have a platform that is maximal commercially exploited, but at the same time, we want to have, as a public body, so much form of control on that platform that we can play a part in guarding the public values that we see in that platform. So, and the balance between those two forms, that's something that we really want to find out next period together also with the market parties. And that's a part of the governance model that we are researching.
Yeah, thanks. And we do have, we are sort of running up, but we have a question for you, Jan, here. it's about data control and how we can ensure privacy and data control. And do we need a social contract for the digital city twin, do you think?
I think the question is really about what kind of privacy level should we apply to built environment data. And that is one thing we are trying in Estonia to separate from personal data, because when it comes to personal data, that is sensitive. That is why, you know, GDPR has been set in place. But when it comes to, you know, the built environment, when it comes to a building, especially public buildings, of course, but even private buildings, houses, apartments, they usually, you know, you cannot really associate that with a person's data. You have to separate that. So that is, first of all, if you think about the visual implications, you know, whatever you see in nature, you will be able to see it anyway. So why can't you see it digitally? And it also influences maybe some safety aspects of your environment. Of course, the data needs to be accessible for safety services, etc., so they can provide better services to the people living in them or the neighborhood. But especially when it comes to, you know, planning new buildings, and even if you're buying or selling something, you're interested in making that data accessible and making it reliable. So you know, if you're buying something, you should I trust the data that the seller is telling me? If we hide all of that data and say it's private, it should be protected, you will have really no way of checking that before you become maybe the owner of that property, and only later find that out. But if we try to separate as much of, you know, this personal information, which is related to, you know, maybe if we're talking about leases and who's leasing and for what period and what kind of, you know, uses that building has had, that's a different case. But if we're talking about the technical aspects, the technical elements, the construction, the systems installed for ventilation, for water, for gas, this is something that shouldn't be considered as private and you know, that you need special rights or to access. This is something I think the more we open up that data, the better we can actually improve our environment.
Sarah, I just have to ask you, any comments on that from a legal perspective?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. Like, if you can separate the personal from the built environment, a lot of the built environment data is out there anyway, and you can access it. It's not as risky as people seem to think it is, and I think a lot of this is next gen stuff. So if you think about kids playing Minecraft now, the amount of data that they share online, and they do this stuff online. I think that next generation coming through is going to wonder why we haven't done this all along.
All right, Sarah, we lost you there, the last sentence. Could you repeat that, please?
Sorry, I was saying I think the next generation coming through who've grown up playing Minecraft and sharing all of their data on Facebook and Instagram are going to wonder why we've not been doing this all along, because I think they've got a different mindset to data sharing than my generation and then those older than me. So I think as long as the risks are sort of wrapped up nicely legally, I think this is really the way forwards, and that next generation is just going to wonder why we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, is that also your sort of feeling, Roland, on that? Why aren't we sharing more?
Yeah, of course, I think that's where it's especially, of course, where it's allowed, we need to have some kind of basis attitude that sharing data brings us all further. So I think that's something that's important. That the physical data are less private sensitive. That's also something which why we're also focusing our digital twin development at what we call the digital physical dimension. The digital social dimension is another aspect, and that's where we believe in development towards a digital urban community, and that's another aspect there. But the focus on the digital twin is mainly on the physical aspects, and there are, in my opinion, still some privacy issues. For example, 3D indoor is something that doesn't everybody want to be out there, even if it's about physical building. The same is about what kind of CV I have in my home, especially when it's my home and not a rented home. It's not something that I want to share with everybody. And it goes even that far, reasonable or not, it goes even that far that people don't want to share their energy label of their building. So it's not that simple when you really dive into it. We have in this Holland, in Holland at this moment, even a discussion on the color of the traffic lights, if that could be personal data maybe at some point, because that could be in a situation where only one car is standing before a traffic light, and there are a lot of discussion going on there. So in essence, yes, physical data isn't that privacy sensitive, but when you really dive into it, then also you see a lot of aspects that's not that easy.
Right. Thank you very much. I think you all have provided different perspectives and given us a lot of insights of what to avoid and where are the benefits and the opportunities here, and really said how can we sort of combine the physical, the digital, and the social dimension of this problem. So I'd like to thank Sarah, Roland, and Jan for very interesting presentations and discussions. And yeah, thank you. And Bernd, would you like to say some final words?
Yes, just some final words. I also want to thank everybody. Really great presentations. I love live demos. Jan, that was great. Yes, I also thank you, Christina, for moderating the session. Great job. I quickly want to finish by saying that we now take a little Easter break, and we will then come back with our fourth seminar on security risks and challenges, which relates in a way to this seminar as well. That will be on the 14th of April, 12:30 again. I hope to see you all back then, and wish you a pleasant afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.